Mas for the wonderful and informative lecture. So now you may see there is a question and answer tab on your screen, and there are questions in your. You can see the questions are popping up. 18 questions you might be seeing.
Yeah.
Am I right? Yeah. So you may open it, and then we will request you to read the question, and then if somebody is putting up his or her name, then also read the name too, and then answer the questions as per the preference. So please.
Yeah, just give me 1 minute. Yeah, thank you all for your questions and all. So I'd like to answer, as much I can address your queries. So the first question is, ma'am, can you please elaborate more on how selectivity is decided among the library? So I would like to go back to the slides for this question. So if you see that we have taken a library of compounds like 4 different alkynes and 17 different azides. Ideally, we should do the reaction mixing together everything and get the product. But in this case, as we get many hit compounds for a given target, we to make it more specific and clear out, to make our analysis more clear, we have taken only one alkyne and the rest of the azides, and then carried out these reactions. So for instance, I would just like to give you one example using the CMYC quadruplex. So we have taken this alkyne, taken all the libraries, all these 17 libraries. So similarly, we take this alkyne in a separate reaction, and all these alkynes, all these azides, similarly one alkyne and all these azides, and 1D and all these azides. So what then all these 4 reactions were monitored by HPLC and mass analysis. So what we found out that our HPLC analysis revealed that we observed only 3 compounds. So if you see these 3 compounds, so this is your HPLC, and you make it and you analyze the mass compound of this compound, and again you prepare this compound and match with that whether this is real indeed this compound which is formed. So from these 3 compounds, so we saw that this compound is obtained as the major compound. So this is, by seeing it, we can say that it is a selective lead for quadruplex. But at the end, we have to also see whether these 3 compounds are selective for CMYC quadruplex or not. So what we saw is we also used a control duplex DNA. So these 2 compounds were also formed here. You see the 3AB and 3AE, which were derived from the alkyne 1A and azide 2B, and alkyne 1A and azide 2E. So these 2 compounds were also obtained by the control duplex DNA. So therefore, we have no choice, that is 3AO is the selective lead. And to again further identify whether 3AO is the selective lead, we have done all the biophysical studies. We have taken 3AO not only for CMYC quadruplex, we have studied its binding interaction with BCL2 I motif, CMYC I motif, BCL2 C quadruplex, and also the control duplex DNA. However, none of these ligands show very weak binding to the control duplex DNA, and it shows only high binding affinity for CMYC quadruplex in comparison to the BCL2 quadruplex, CMYC I motif, or BCL2 I motif. So this clearly suggests that the ligand is selective for your CMYC quadruplex. I hope it would be clear. So can I go to the second question?
Yeah, please. Yes, so, please go ahead with the questions. Yeah.
Is it applicable to target mitochondria marker? Thank you. We haven't tried it. We can look for it. No, once the lockdown period is over. Thank you. We haven't checked for that. And then again, for example, BCL2J quadruplex. The same question possibly. No, sorry, we haven't checked its application or its applicability to target the mitochondria marker. So next, could you please explain about IC50 for cytotoxicity? Yeah, as you know, cytotoxicity is a commonly used method for determining the IC50 of those compounds. IC50, as you know, the cancer cell death. So here we have taken two different cancer cells. Particularly, the cancer cells are selected as we are targeting c-MYC and BCL2 genes. So we have tried to see, and we are trying to see the gene regulation. So we used like c-MYC overexpressing cancer cell line HeLa, and we also used BCL2 overexpressing cancer cell line B95.8. So what we observed that these ligands, as you see, this value shows low cytotoxicity, low IC50 value. That means you need low micromolar concentration to kill your 50% of the cells. And you see the NK cell is a normal kidney human cell line, and they are non-toxic to the NK cells, or shows minimal cytotoxicity when the value is 1 or 2 micromolar, it's almost 25 micromolar. So in that way, you can see the IC50 values like all this. So we used 4 different compounds, and we see all these compounds so low micromolar IC50 values to kill the 50% of the cells for the HeLa and B95.8. And but if you see this ligand 3BM BCL, which was obtained by the BCL2I motif, it cannot inhibit the growth of HeLa cells or B95.5 or even the normal cells. So I think it would help your queries. So can I go to the next one? So next is.
Yes, please.
Yeah, it is always, is it always true that stabilizing I motif results in cancer cell death? If the ligand destabilizes the I motif, what is the effect? No, it is not true that stabilizing I motif results in cancer cell death. If you see in our case, there are results. You see that this is the summary. I'm going to the summary of this, that ligand 3BE and 3BM both stabilize I motifs. Like 3BE stabilizes c-MYC I motif. This is that 3BE stabilizes the c-MYC I motif, and ligand 3BM stabilizes the BCL2I motif. And you see, in one case we see transcription up and the cancer cell death, but in other case we find the upregulation and it did not kill the cancer cell. So maybe targeting I motif could also lead to different therapeutic avenues. For instance, neurodegenerative disorders, where that we show just now that the BCL2I motif lead that selectively binds to its BCL2I motif can upregulate gene regulation, and it cannot kill the cancer cells or normal cells. So therefore, ideally, by targeting I motif always does not lead to the cancer cell death. So next question. This is a very good question. How did you distinguish 1,4 and 1,5 triazoles as you synthesized a mixture of products? Yeah, sure. There is a possibility we can get either 1,4 or 1,5 or even a mixture of compounds. So here is the thing that we have made these compounds. I'll show you. So look at this compound, that how we determined that it is 1,4-triazole product is formed as the major lead compound. So we have taken two different that alkyne and azide fragments, which was obtained by the quadruplex nanotemplate. So when you do we said that quadruplex nanotemplate gave you 1,4-triazole. So we found the 1,4-triazole was formed by the quadruplex nanotemplate. So as you already know that copper-1 catalyzed reaction can be catalyzed regioselectively by copper-1 catalysis, like that alkyne and azide cycloaddition can lead to 1,4-triazole products selectively by using copper-1 catalyzed cycloaddition. So when we use the copper-1 catalyzed condition, under these conditions, you get 1,4. And if you heat it, then you get both 1,4 and 1,5. So what we did is we have heated these compounds and we get both 1,4 and 1,5. We have taken the compound and we used quadruplex nanotemplate, only TZ1, and the in situ product gave only 1,4. So therefore, by comparing the HPLC traces of both 1,4 and 1,5 and the 1,4-triazole, which was synthesized by copper-1 catalyzed reactions, we can identify that quadruplex nanotemplate promotes the alkyne and azide cycloaddition in a regioselective manner. Okay, I hope this is very clear with all the data and all. How can you compare whether your compound is 1,4 and 1,5? We can easily make the 1,4-triazole in the lab by using copper-1 catalyzed reaction, and you can get a mixture of compounds when you heat it, the compound, both compounds you can get, and then you can identify by using HPLC analysis whether your product is 1,4 or 1,5. Okay, so next. Oh, this is a clear and lucid explanation. Thank you. The binding of these small molecules checked in silico. Yes, some of the compounds we have checked the binding interactions by molecular modeling. We haven't gone more detailed analysis, not molecular dynamic studies, but just we have done the docking analysis. I have shown in one cases with the TAR RNA that to know a little bit the knowledge about that where the ligand binds and all. And we have also done some NMR analysis in collaboration to understand the binding mode of these ligands with the quadruplexes and I motif. But in vivo, yes, we have some data. Some of these compounds show potent anti-cancer activities in cell and in vivo using the mouse model, but I haven't shown this in the slides. So it's not that all compounds work. A few ligands which are very potent also work in vivo model. Okay, so next question. Okay, I am Dr. I have a couple of questions. What is the ratio of toxicity of these ligands? Ratio, as you see that many cases these ligands even these ligands do not kill the normal cells. So there is a very high ratio, even 1:50. You can say that the ratio is very high. In certain cases, even these ligands doesn't kill. Many of these ligands do not kill the normal cells. So this is highly selective. We can say it's mostly selective towards cancer cells. It can selectively kill the cancer cells. Can we use such ligands for? Yeah, very nice question, Dr. Sunil Gaikwad. I don't know Gaikwad. That can we use such ligands for making drugs for COVID-19? Ligand is showing good effect on HIV or the RNA virus. Yeah, very good question. Very good thing. Yeah, that is maybe we don't know that because we haven't even tested these ligands. We only show that they bind to the TAR RNA. They have the potential to become antiviral agents, but since we don't have that facility of virus, we haven't checked even whether these ligands are killing the HIV virus or not. And possibly, this is a very good thing. I could say that, but one can use the in situ cycloaddition approach to design and to develop selective ligands for COVID-19 RNA or DNA structure. So that thing should be. We are trying to look at that what is the genome and if we can target selectively the COVID-19 virus, RNA or DNA. Okay, thank you. Knowing they won't follow the Okay, so how do you plan to take them to in vivo and further? Yeah, very nice question. That they don't follow the. It is not required that always they should follow the Lipinski's rule of the drugs, but this is, as you see, that as I said at the end, that is most of these studies are proof of concept studies to show whether this in situ chemistry approach is working to generate a number of selective ligands for the DNA quadruplexes or I motif. So this is one of the important points for us to find out whether the strategy works indeed for different targets which are not exploded. Like I motifs we used for the first time to identify ligands. Star RNA was also a very old target, but the in situ cycloaddition wasn't used to generate selective ligands that one can do in the lab very easily. Yeah, many of these compounds, as I saw previously, as I answered, that many of these compounds also show also show anti-cancer effect in vivo models. So in future, we are trying to make more specific and complex molecules that would be suitable for in vivo or drug-like drug development. Thank you. So were there any criteria for selecting carcinoma cells? Yes, there are criteria when you are doing gene regulation, for instance, like this. So as I have also already answered and showed that, I'm not going, that when we have used CMYC and BCL2 genes, we have used cancer cells that overexpress CMYC, and we have used also cancer cells that for BCL2, we used cancer cells that can overexpress the BCL2 genes. We have to select the cancer cells depending on our studies. But in a model, we can anyway see in HeLa as a model or NCF7 as a model cancer cell line. We can always study the effect of the ligands in any cancer cell line. Has any pharmacophore modeling also done to identify? No, we haven't done the pharmacophore modeling to identify the hit compounds, but after getting the hit compounds, we have studied the molecular docking studies to understand that how these molecules bind to the DNA quadruplexes and I motifs. But one can also do like modeling of the fragments and identify more selective and more potent fragments for the in situ cycloaddition. What about the bioavailability and pharmacokinetics? Yes, we haven't studied the bioavailability and pharmacokinetics of these ligands. Maybe this is a future goal of this work. Yeah, is there any change in structure for TAR RNA while doing cycloaddition? Have you followed CDR NMR? Sorry, NMR we did not follow because TAR RNA NMR would be difficult. Indeed, we followed the CD and of the TAR RNA in the buffer, and initially when some of the TAR RNA was not consumed, no, we did not see any change in the CD NMR, in the CD circular dichroism we followed. There was no change. The biological studies have done it by yourself. No, we have done the biological studies ourselves, not with collaboration. Patented these molecules, so we are not really lucky to patent the compounds here. Some of the compounds we are patented, but not all the compounds are patented, because it took very long time and we have to give up and publish the work. How have you selected the fragments for cycloaddition? Yeah, this is also a very nice question that I have to go to a few slides. So look at I'm showing some of the compounds, not all are here. You see for the quadruplex, like we have selected an alkyne of this fragment and azide of this fragment. So you see, so these are the alkyne and these are alkyne azide fragments. This is not all of the library, but a few members are here. So this would be easy to explain. So if you see, this contain an aromatic, heteroaromatic, big aromatic ring system.